Hi, and welcome to Across the Desk. This week, we're going to talk about Ryan Walters' lack of work ethic, as he doesn't seem to want to show up to work. We have people resigning because he's not there to sign off on things, even showing up to meetings late, or sometimes not at all. And then we have this other thing going on with the federal court case in Iowa, where they absolutely took away their ability to proselytize Christianity upon their students, which may have an impact on what Ryan Walters would like to do here in Oklahoma. So there was another state school board meeting last Thursday, and it wasn't as contentious as people might think, but some of the interesting things that happened was, one, Ryan Walters himself was 7 minutes late to the meeting, which makes you kind of wonder about some things. You know, he has a problem showing up to work. We had a lady who just resigned, hasn't had the post 4 or 5 months, and this is in the grant writing department. We already lost one lady who said, hey, this is untenable, can't get anything done. And then Ryan Walters replaced her with someone else who leaves within 4 months because of the chaos and the dysfunction brought on by Ryan Walters when it comes to the State Department of Education here in Oklahoma. Can't show up to work. He's lacking base leadership to guide anybody to do anything. So this lady gave a scathing resignation letter talking about how, hey, every time I needed something, Ryan Walters was never there. He was off somewhere in some other state at a rally, giving a Fox News interview in New York. He was never at his job. He doesn't do his job. I don't know that. Part of it may be he just really doesn't know how to do the job. He doesn't have any experience or education in administration. No management ability whatsoever. No management experience or education or anything. And he's tasked with managing a huge department, and he's really failing at it. So we have this lady who put in this resignation saying, hey man, I can't do base grant writing stuff because the requisitions that I need, I can't get them signed off by Ryan Walters because he's never at work. I can't get into some of the base websites to fill out forms for grant writing because he's never done anything to set up the authorization or put anybody to do it. He's lacking the leadership, the ability to delegate tasks to people to make sure things get done. All he's doing is throwing a circus, grabbing media attention. That's all Ryan Walters does. That's all this is. He couldn't care less about the job of running our Oklahoma Department of Education for public schools, and that's what it's all about. See, he hates public education. Can't stand it. Wants to get rid of it. For his private school buddies like Betsy DeVos and Dennis Prager, that's who he's beholden to. That's why he's trying to destroy public education. A great way to do it is to show his ineptitude as a manager. So that's what we have here. The absences leave staff without leadership, and they can't get any kind of base things done. And the other thing in this letter, the resignation letter that this woman put in was, hey man, I voted for Ryan Walters. I was a Ryan Walters fan. I was behind him all the way. Let's get something done. But we can't. And if he can't be physically present, and we can't do this stuff, then why are we paying him for? Why do we even have the position if we really don't need it filled? And that was one of the scathing things she said in this letter that came out that they posted in the Tulsa World. Another Walters grant writer manager resigns, alleges essential functions impossible at the State Department of Education. That's the headline. Tulsa World. Right there. He can't do anything. He lacks the leadership ability to get things done. He just can't seem to do it. 7 minutes late to the board meeting on Thursday. Shows up 7 minutes late to your own board meeting. And it goes in further. It kind of makes you wonder, a lot of other people like Matt Langston, you never see him anywhere either. And whenever I go to look him up, he's always seems that his data location is always in Austin. Austin, Texas, people. So we have a guy named Matt Langston working for the State Department of Education, pulling down six-figure income. He doesn't even live in Oklahoma. From what I can find, he doesn't live here. I can't even find where he even has an apartment that he comes to stay at. All I see is that his main residence is in Austin, Texas. He still lives in Austin, Texas. He's barely ever in Oklahoma from what I can find out. And this is a guy who's running our education department for Ryan Walters from Austin, Texas. Do you think that guy really has any skin in the game for Oklahoma education if he's from Texas, still lives in Texas, pays all his taxes in Texas? That guy couldn't care less about Oklahoma or the education system here. He doesn't. This is a guinea pig for him, something to try out thing, because he doesn't have to take any of the responsibility. He doesn't have to face any of the consequences if he screws up anything. So it's a perfect guinea pig for him. He doesn't live here anyway. He's a Texan. And that's what we have. And that's so many of the things that are wrong with Oklahoma. We let Texas, oil billionaires and tech billionaires, just rape Oklahoma. And that's one of the reasons why we have such a low GDP. We have one of the lowest gross domestic products in the nation. Oklahoma does. There's no money here. The reason why? Because big time oil companies in Texas and tech in Texas, they've raped the resources here. Paid no taxes on it. Take it down to Texas, resell it, pay taxes for Texas. So they take our wealth. And the politicians here let them. Why? Well, because it doesn't take much. Those guys are billionaires. They're mega billionaires down there, these companies. They can buy off our Republican politicians really easy. And then they can spin it really easy, and their people will believe anything they say. So that's what we have here. We have a bunch of Texas people running the state of Oklahoma into the ground. Because, they really don't care about Oklahoma. They're from Texas. Just like James Langford. He's from Texas, too. He still has a house down there as well, even though he says he resides in Edmond or whatever. But he doesn't actually have family or ties here either. This is a big problem we have in Oklahoma with a lot of our legislators and just political wranglings that we have. A lot of our stuff is for the benefit of Texas. It absolutely is. We may be able to beat them in football, but when it comes to politics, when it comes to GDP and our wealth, Texas absolutely is winning at that game. Oklahoma, we're so stuffed under Texas, it's not even funny. They really have manipulated our lawmakers. They have really manipulated them to give away our GDP, to give away our resources, and to let them use our education system as a guinea pig for what they'd like to do nationally and see what can work and what can't. Let's push that envelope here because it's Oklahoma. No one cares. And they don't. And even if they did, we don't have the GDP or the resources to fight it. So that's the point. They've been really good strategically about putting Oklahoma in a box and then owning our legislators, as well as governors, to give it up to them. Come on, Mary Fallon, zero GDP, so Texas oil billionaires could just take the oil down to Texas, refine it, resell it, and pay Texas taxes, which, believe me, they have a gross production tax, and it's higher than ours in Oklahoma. I wonder why that is. I wonder how come theirs is so much higher than Oklahoma. And it's Texas oil companies that are taking our oil. That's how it works, you see. That's what they're doing. So here we are. It goes into that bigger problem with, hey, lack of leadership from Ryan Walters is exactly what we have here. No leadership. He's not in the room. He's gone. He's nowhere to be found. He can't even show up to meetings on time. Meetings that he himself have put up. Hey man, our monthly meeting, I can't show up to it on time. I guess that commute from Texas is a hell of a commute. Yeah, he's got a place in Edmond, but there's no way. There's no way he can't show up to work on time, or even just show up to work. Can't even just show up so he can sign off on requisitions so people can do grant writing. Can't even do that. Now, going on to my last item here about all of this, something interesting happened. I think it was Iowa, and this was a federal case. Iowa tried to make Christianity the religion of their government. They absolutely did. Our state government, we're a Christian government. We're a Christian state. So therefore, we're going to make sure that we do Christian prayers and everything in public schools. That's kind of what they did. Put up the 10 Commandments like Ryan Walters wants to do. Wants to be able to do a bunch of stuff. So here you go, and I'm gonna read you something from put my readers on and read you something from this case, and see how the parallels are for Oklahoma. And I remind you, this is a federal case. So this actually does affect Oklahoma. And if we wanted to apply the same standards, which I think they should be, then this is what we're going to get. Because I thought it was really smart what they said. As a part of the settlement, there was a settlement in Cabell County's Board of Education policies. This was a county there that made these policies to make Christianity their official religion. So what they did, they said, it is not the province of public schools to either inhibit or advance religious beliefs or practices, board lawyer Brian D. Morrison said in a statement to the Associated Press. Students must remain free to voluntarily express their individual religious freedoms or lack thereof as each student sees fit, not what the county or that school board saw fit for them to do. And this goes into a bigger deal. And I can't remember if this was the one. I think there's another case where there was another place too. And this was in the South, where they had a preacher, an evangelical preacher, come during school hours to give a revival. And even though they came back later and said, oh, hey, this was total voluntary and just some of the teachers and stuff, they misunderstood what the communications were. Well, I don't think they misunderstood. I think if there was any communications, they were meant to be misconstrued. So some teachers took their whole class to this assembly where this evangelical preacher was telling them, you need to find Jesus or you're going to hell, including the Jews that were sitting in there. And this one guy who was Jewish said, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. I need to go. And the teacher wouldn't let him say, oh, the doors are locked, just sit down. Raise your hands and pray. That's exactly what they told him to do. So they totally violated these students' civil rights. They violated their constitutional First Amendment right. And then the next day there was a rally. Over 150 students did it between classes and said, hey, my rights aren't negotiable here. This is a public school. I have a right to a public education, and I have one free from being compelled to join a religion that I don't agree with, or I'm not a part of. It's not my heritage, like somebody who's Jewish or Muslim or even Hindu wouldn't. And there were people in this thing that had to go to this evangelical preacher's assembly at a public high school and listen to them tell him, if you don't have Jesus in your life, you're going to hell. And he's telling this to kids. How is this not grooming? How is this not just a violation? So the preacher had to come back and say, yeah, I'm doing this for Jesus. This is all he's compelling me, and God's compelling me. This is all for God. And he was like going off. And I don't know what his whole deal was on this bill, because I guess he's just trying to save his butt. But he really even looked worse, because here he is going after other kids of other faiths and religions and saying how they need this. They need to turn away from what their parents and their whole culture has been. They need to hate their parents. That's the kind of thing this guy was going off on. Well, they weren't having it, and the school board had to come out and apologize. They had to go out and apologize and say, okay, we can't do this. We're not going to have it during. If they want to do it, they can do it, but it has to be after school. It has to be voluntary. You can't force your whole class to go. And that's what they did. So, rightfully so, the courts, the federal courts, the U.S. courts came out and said, hey, can't do this. This is a violation of civil rights. It's a violation of the First Amendment. You can't force people into Christianity. You can't do it. So that was a big thing. And hey, this has implications for Ryan Walters, because something he wants to do is a Ten Commandments thing. This kind of stops that. Oh, and last but not least, Summer Boismier. Okay, so since June or even April, Ryan Walters has said, I'm coming for her certificate. I'm coming for it. And then, it'll be in June. Okay, it didn't happen in June. Okay, August. We got it on August. We're gonna put her up. We're gonna revoke her teaching certificate. Didn't happen. Okay, it's gonna be September. Okay, October. So here we go. We've had all these things. October comes. I guess maybe because he was late to the meeting. Who knows? He didn't get it out there. So hey, guess what? Summer Boismier still has her teaching certificate and totally trolled him online with a post with a deal that says, ready, active. My license is active and I'm suing you, Ryan. She is. She's coming for him. She's not just coming for the state. She's coming for him personally. And she's going to win because he absolutely did defame her. He absolutely did lie about her. He absolutely, in the grossest of ways, had her followers in a fit of stochastic terrorism threaten her life. So far much that she had to move out of the state because of the death threats she was getting, because of people putting stuff on her door, because of people sending videos of where she lived and following her. This is the politics of Ryan Walters and what he believes. So, she's coming at it, and she's probably going to win. And that's probably going to really, really harm Ryan Walters. I hope it does. I hope personally she comes for his assets and he has to give up personal assets. Of course, you know, people like Betsy DeVos and Dennis Prager keep sending him hundreds of thousands of dollars through back channel, black, dark money stuff. So he's probably going to be okay, probably be able to do some kind of private, enter GoFundMe deal to make sure that Summer Boismier gets paid anything that she's going to be due out of this, because he defamed her by lying about her. Well, that's all I have this week. Ryan Walters and his chaos and dysfunction can't show up to work. There you go. His proselytizing, his Christianity, and how that's not going to work out for him, and how he still hasn't been able to get Summer Boismier's teaching certificate. This is Across the Desk. We'll see you next week.